I am going to talk very briefly about the video that I did with the charges against Tyler James Robinson for the assassination of Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens. I'm going to make this very clear. I have loved Candace Owens for a very long time. Not only am I a YouTuber and a content creator, I am disabled, I'm a patriot, I believe in God, I don't believe in politics on either side of the aisle, I don't believe in big government, I believe there's corruption everywhere, in politics especially. I am 39 turning 40 late this year, and I survived cervical cancer, which I was diagnosed and fought between the ages of 32 and 34. I even have her book presented to her mainstream audience with her mainstream media. Because I know a lot of people like to say mainstream media. You know, YouTube is mainstream media in the digital and modern age. Just because somebody's independent does not mean that they don't have more reach than mainstream media does. But she has presented this in English, this investigation into Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte Macron, the sitting president of the Republic of France. This is Candace Owens presents an investigation by Xavier Poussard. Of course, we know everything that's happening with Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte Macron suing her and suing Xavier Poussard over in France. The funny thing about this investigation here is that Xavier Poussard has spent a decade doing his work. This is very conclusive evidence and proof that Brigitte Macron really is Jean-Michel Trogneau and is transgender and has been using his younger sister's identity, which also, if true, is a crime because you can't use somebody else's identity, even if they give you permission to do so. And Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte Macron cannot be legally married because at the time of their wedding that is listed, it was not legal for two biological sexes to marry in the Republic of France yet. That wouldn't come till a few years later, which would automatically make that marriage null and void if Brigitte Macron really is Jean-Michel Trogneau. The ironic part of this investigation is that pretty much nobody on planet Earth cares if somebody is transgender. What they do care about is the sitting president of a nation lying to their constituents. That's where people have a problem. The people of France deserve to know if their first lady is a biologically born male. That is their right to know. When anybody is their president, their politicians, if it's a prime minister, a king, a queen, whatever it may be, it's the lying to the people. They deserve to know the truth. And you cannot cite privacy as a reason, because you cannot be a public figure or the head of a nation and say, but I still want my privacy over here. Yeah, you get your privacy when you take a shit on the toilet. You don't get to have your privacy when it comes to other matters. Especially because Brigitte Macron was 39 and a teacher when she met and formed a relationship with 14-year-old Emmanuel Macron, which makes that dynamic completely disgusting, perverse, and illegal. Now, Candace Owens has done 6 videos about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, remember, the feds are all corrupt. Remember, the feds are all lying. Remember, the Utah police, which brought charges against Tyler James Robinson, they're all corrupt. They're all liars, which means that her investigation, her independent investigation, her independent probe, she cannot use what the feds and the Utah law enforcement officers have publicly put out to cite, because why would you cite or use their public information on their case for the person they found, they arrested, they indicted, charged, and that they are taking to trial for the assassination of Charlie Kirk, right? You can't use or cite any of their public stuff. She's not privy to their case file the same way I'm not privy to their case file. And those evidences will not be released until after Tyler James Robinson is not only gone to trial, but is sentenced. Then anybody can request a Freedom of Information Act request. And of course, they're going to redact certain very graphic autopsy photos, crime scene photos, because that's not in the interests of his wife and kids and victims. So of course, there's always going to be things that they're going to redact or not release. Same thing with the Epstein files. You are going to expect things to be redacted in them because Epstein harmed a lot of minors, and those minors had information in those files that it should not be given to the public. That information should always be redacted and protected, even if they're an adult now. There is absolutely no proof whatsoever that anybody other than Tyler James Robinson solely took it upon himself, took an opportunity after he learned that Charlie Kirk was going to be somewhere nearby, and that he is the one who orchestrated and planned and carried out the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, Candace Owens said verbatim that she's going to solve that we, meaning her independent team, even though they're little, she said that
we are going to solve the murder of my friend Charlie Kirk. And if you guys...
So why is she not in Utah talking to witnesses on the ground? Why is she not out there with an independent crime lab collecting evidence, DNA, whatever? She can't use or cite what the FBI have put out, their case, their evidence, the guy they caught, because if she concludes the same exact person, that is piggyback writing off of what the dirty, remember, they're dirty, they're corrupt. They're dirty, they're corrupt, you can't trust them. But even if she's trying to say that there's corruption because of the handling, what does it matter? Because if the end result is still that Tyler James Robinson killed and assassinated Charlie Kirk, then the conclusion is still the same, which is the truth. He is the person that did it. As of right now, that is what we have. And we also got to remember that Charlie Kirk has had a friendship and a relationship professionally with the now FBI director, Kash Patel, before he was the FBI director. I'm assuming that's why the FBI worked alongside, because this is a domestic terrorist, if you want to put it that way. That's why he flew all the way to Utah. That's why the FBI worked alongside Utah police who are charging Tyler James Robinson, because this was his friend. This is somebody that he knew professionally. Like I said, even before he became the director of the FBI. So of course that makes sense, right? That makes sense that he would want to fly out there and be on the ground and make sure that this is done correctly, because he's overseeing the conviction of the assassin of his friend. Now, I would never say something horrible because I absolutely love Candace Owens, but she's not free from critique. I would never say something like, oh, well, why didn't Candace Owens, if she was such good friends with Charlie Kirk, why didn't she drop everything and fly across the country and go do an independent investigation also? That was her really close friend. I would never say something like that. She just gave birth to her 4th child. She's got 4 small children. I have 5 children myself, ages 12 all the way up to almost 22. See, this is the thing that I am critiquing about Candace Owens. And just because I like her, just because I have her books, just because I have read her other books, just because I have followed her for many years, just because I like her personality, and I actually love her personality, just because I think that her conspiracy theories are really fun. I think that she can be very informative at times. I love her approach. I love the way that she presents information. And I'm not going to say because I align with certain things or certain values, morals, and beliefs, but that is not going to blind or bias me, okay? In fact, the opposite is true. When you really like, care, and love somebody, and you care about them spiritually, and you care about the truth, that is why you ultimately critique and say, hold on a second, wait, this is a little too much. Wait, this is not right. Wait a minute, now I think you're biased. Now I think you got a little bit too much hatred and anger in your heart spiritually. In her 6 videos, as seen here, Candace Owens very much conflates the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the investigation of Charlie Kirk, talking about Israel, Zionists, American Jewish, very wealthy people who make donations to certain organizations or nonprofits. She very much confuses and conflates all of these issues and this pressure that Charlie Kirk may have had about securing money for his nonprofit, Turning Point USA, with his assassination, when one did not cause the other. Now, Charlie Kirk's assassination is separate. He has what he's been doing for a very long time, and that is he goes on college campuses and debates. That's what he does. He is political. He has his political life. He has his family life, his wife and his kids. He's got his organization, his nonprofit, Turning Point USA. So he's got the business side there. The assassination and all of those things are completely separate. And those are all completely separate from Charlie Kirk's religious beliefs. Yes, all of those things, his political beliefs, his organization, his religious beliefs, all of that, the thing that he did most for content, even his latest, which is his Charlie Kirk show, his actual show that he puts on YouTube, all of that all comes back to him, Charlie Kirk. But all of those individual things are not all linked together. And nor are any of them just solely linked to his assassination, from what we know right now. Now, Candace Owens doesn't like the feds. They're dirty. They're corrupt, remember? So she's not going to be using what they've only put out publicly, for her content, right? Now, this has nothing to do with it, but Candace Owens' husband is allegedly worth over 250 million pounds or US dollars. I can't remember. Candace Owens herself has amassed about $6 million. Some people on X have speculated that the Macron lawsuit is going to bleed her dry and that this is a grift. And the reason why is because she, with these last 6 videos, has seen an over 500% increase in live gifts, viewership, ad revenue, the replay ad revenue, merchandise sales, website hits, monthly membership subscriptions to her website. Now, she says verbatim,
we are going to solve the murder of my friend Charlie Kirk. And
which means if she does not come with any definitive proof at all whatsoever of who was behind it, that they are behind it, and it's got to be somebody other than Tyler James Robinson, because concluding with the dirty, corrupt feds have concluded is still the end result of their hard work. And you don't want to if you're going to do an independent probe or an independent investigation, you can't piggyback ride off of them. And you can't say that this is ongoing because you're waiting till next year when his trial comes around and is done in the sentencing or any appeal, all of it. That's when you, me, Candace Owens, or anybody else that's not privy to those case files and evidences can actually get a Freedom of Information Act request put in to receive those documents. I think that Candace Owens has made it very clear that she doesn't align with Israel, with the Prime Minister, Benjamin, aka Bibi Netanyahu, that she doesn't align with some of his policies, some of his actions, words, choices, and behaviors, and that's fine. She says things that's very manipulative of her audience. Like, if you don't believe what I believe, if you don't believe what I believe, then you're a demon, you're a psychopath, you're evil. It's not left versus right. It's us versus them. It's us versus evil. It's good versus evil. And if you don't, she's leading you, that's psychological manipulation. That's why people call her a psyop. They think that she is put on YouTube, which is today's mainstream media. Having 5 million followers over on YouTube is a lot more than several different cities and their mainstream news gets. I mean, even look at the main media of Detroit. They're lucky if they get 100,000 people watch that. Candace Owens, YouTube, even if she's independently doing her own show and she's independently backed by her husband, she is mainstream. Even though she lost her job with the Daily Wire and people called her an anti-Semite and that she had this whole thing with YouTube and being blocked from YouTube for almost a year and then finally got that resolved, still, Candace Owens, to me, is mainstream media. That's exactly why she presents Xavier Poussard's investigation into Brigitte Macron and husband Emmanuel Macron. Because not only is she bringing that to an English-speaking Western world, but she's bringing it to her mainstream platform audience. Even though she's independent, she's still a mainstream media figurehead. As far as audience numbers and reach, she has every right to make content about the assassination of her friend Charlie Kirk. She does. She has every right to make money. But it looks weird to everybody because doing 6 videos, 6 days in a row about just that, and the making almost, I'm going to put this here. Somebody actually did the math, and this is 7 figures over 6 videos in 6 days. 7 figures. That is, whether or not it's good or bad intentions behind what the content is made about, that is still monetizing the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I have done a video sharing my thoughts and feelings on that because I don't necessarily agree with Charlie Kirk on everything, but I was absolutely devastated and hurt that so many people were celebrating, and I do not condone that whatsoever. Because the thing that angers me is that a 22-year-old kid was able to get a rifle and was able to do that, take somebody's life unjustly. Charlie Kirk did not deserve to have that happen to him, whether you agreed with him or not. It's deeply angering and personal to anybody, because if it can happen to him, it can happen to anybody. But I loved his personality. I loved his religious beliefs because I believe in God myself. I love the fact that he opened himself up to debate with really young people, expanding their mind and their horizons. So even if Candace Owens has good intentions behind making 6 different videos in 6 days and making 7 figures, which she has not seen this kind of viewership, this kind of live gifts, or even the financial aspect of it, has not seen this with most of her other investigations, which are all open-ended, no conclusions yet. This is why I have spent the last 11 days fact-checking, verifying, corroborating, because the problem that I'm having is that I do love Candace Owens. I absolutely don't agree with her on everything, but I don't like the psychological manipulation. And this is somebody who talks about psychology, the CIA, the FBI, all of it, all of the time. But she's using the same exact tactic that a lot of very conservative or very liberal people do. And it's the entire thing with the audience that if you don't conclude what she's obviously concluding, that you're evil, that you're a demon, that you're wrong, because this is fact. This is fact versus misinformation and conspiracy and unfounded. This is truth versus hearsay. This is absolutely good versus absolute psychopathic evil. That this is demons versus good people. And right in the midst of that psychological manipulation, it's always, this isn't left versus right. It's us versus them. Okay, Candace Owens is a millionaire. She is a mainstream media figurehead herself. Okay, she's not one of me. She's not one of us, regular poor people. But that right there is designed to make the audience believe that they are one with her. And that if you conclude something other or critique her at all, and Candace Owens is not exempt from criticism in any way, shape, or form, but that if you think or feel anything outside of what she's telling you to think or feel, that you're one of those things, that you're evil, that you're bad, that you're a liar, that you're not standing for truth. Charlie Kirk said this: what makes the West great is that we do good after evil, not evil after evil. And for all those people that are trying to gaslight Candace Owens, who says she's spiritually religious, converted a few years ago, I guess religions, whatever. But she's saying right here, for all those people trying to manipulate her into Charlie would have done it the nice way, but they shot him in the throat anyway. See, that right there is feeding into what she already believes, not what the truth is, not what factually took place and happened, but what she believes. And she wants to feed into everybody's paranoia and distrust of the police and law enforcement and the feds with the they shot him in the throat anyway. We're going to revisit this later, and I'll save this and pin it all. But no, he, a 22-year-old, named Tyler James Robinson shot him in the throat anyway, because he made that choice. And I know Candace Owens, she doesn't like Israel. Charlie Kirk loved Israel. He might have had issues or pressures, which I think she's correct about. And I think she should have really focused her investigation more on separating these things, and it wouldn't be so confusing and feel like it's all just a big clusterfuck of just mind fucking people. Because spiritually, I felt the presence of something profoundly not good, especially with video number 4, 5, and 6. There can be corruption. There can be lies. The deep state, the feds, the CIA can be corrupt and lie. Law enforcement can be corrupt and lie. But does that mean that they're doing such in the investigation for Charlie Kirk and his assassination? Absolutely not. But trying to make you feel and believe that that is the case because it's convenient for her. And how convenient. She hates Israel. And she doesn't believe in Zionism anymore. And she conflates all of these issues regarding Charlie Kirk. His American/American Jewish donors for his nonprofit, Turning Point USA, he might have been under pressure there, but that has absolutely nothing to do with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, or Israel. And here's my problem. In her first couple videos, she does not say that Bibi Netanyahu or Israel has anything to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But she heavily conflates those two different topics and implies or insinuates, and that's a very clever, very cunning way to get around committing defamation by making you believe and conclude what she wants you to believe and conclude. And that is, it's possible. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I don't know about you, but I would think that's kind of weird. When Bibi Netanyahu responded to that, and when he was talking about Charlie Kirk in the letter that he sent him back in May, and she demands for him to show that letter. Candace Owens, me, everybody else, we're not going to be privy to a prime minister, a king, a queen, a president, or an emperor of any nation out of 195 that are on planet Earth. We don't get the right, the entitlement, or the audacity to tell anybody, even the Prime Minister of Israel, even if we do not like his actions, words, choices, and behaviors, demand to see his private correspondence at all. And the fact is that reaction that she provoked out of him, she then turns around to say in her next subsequent videos, I never said Israel or Bibi Netanyahu or the Jewish or Zionists have anything to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. You didn't have to say it. You heavily implied and insinuated it. And then once that reaction came out of him, and she did the same thing with Bill Ackman. Once you provoke that reaction, you then use that reaction to then further not only say, see, look, they're coming after me. See, look, they're coming after me. But see, look, isn't it kind of weird that they're responding that way? I wonder why they're responding that way. If you wouldn't have implied or insinuated about the money and the Jewish and Israel being behind the donors and the pressure that Charlie Kirk was under and conflating those issues, it wouldn't have been perceived by the public that that's what you're trying to make us conclude, is that they're the ones that had something to probably do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Although I would never believe that or say that outright, is not only is that not true, that's a lie, that's defamation. That is just downright evil psychological manipulation. That is things that true demons really do. While telling you that anybody else that doesn't believe that is a demon. Well, I'm not Jewish. I'm an all-American Caucasian female. I'm physically disabled. I have survived cervical cancer. I am a mother. I am not a Zionist. I'm not from Israel. I believe in God. I'm not from the deep state or the CIA or the feds. And I absolutely have always loved Candace Owens But she's not exempt from critique or criticism in any way. She has gone down a hole that looks very dark. And the road to hell is paved in good intentions. So even if her intentions are good, that's a slippery slope. The same person who supported Trump and pushed people to vote for Trump now doesn't like Trump or his administration or the things that they're doing. And she says it's because he is financially backed by Zionists. So essentially, those Zionists are the ones that are running and controlling the country. And remember, she's very good at not naming names. So she's not committing defamation when she lumps everybody together as Zionists or the wealthy Jewish backers and donors. But she simultaneously also does that to you and me as her audience. The one bit that really bothered me the most, it's like the kid that's like the shit starter, the nitpicky kid, the one that is always sitting there and whispering something to another kid's ear, sitting there flicking them, sitting there tapping them, sitting there pushing them, sitting there, bullying them out of their lunch money, whatever have you, and then when the kid finally gets so tired of it and finally hits back or yells back or stands up for themselves, then the person or the kid says, I didn't do anything. That is what we call an instigator. That's an instigator. They then not only have two reasons why they do that, because they then get the other person that they're bullying in trouble, but then they also get to simultaneously sit back and act like the victim. And I think right now everybody in America is really fucking tired of just the perpetual victim and the perpetual victim narrative, especially from grown fucking adults. And yeah, Charlie Kirk would have done it the nice way. The person that knows him the most is Erica Kirk. And when she said, the only person that's going to get me to stop looking into the assassination of Charlie Kirk, my friend Charlie Kirk, is either my husband or Erica Kirk. That's when that opened a lot of people's eyes, because they said, wait a minute, her husband was just assassinated. They have a 3 and a 1-year-old. Why would you put that kind of pressure on her? She's now the new CEO of Turning Point USA. She knew her husband better than anybody, including Candace Owens. And she just said this.
On the cross, our Savior said,
I'm going to take a moment and let you listen.
Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That young man, I forgive him.
So when Charlie Kirk literally said that what makes the West great is that we do good after evil.
What makes the West great is that we do good after evil, not evil after evil.
That
instead of
spiritually, in my heart and my soul and my mind, and with my own belief in God, my whole life, I want to believe in that more than I want to believe in the bias, the hatred, and the anger. And I'm sure she is. I mean, that was her friend. That was somebody that was a colleague, a former colleague of hers, somebody that she had a friendship with, somebody that she probably did look up to as a mentor and loved very much and learned a lot from politically, religiously. But that's where all we can do is pray for Candace Owens and really hope that she finds spiritually a way out of that. And it's also no coincidence to me that the big corrupt feds, that the big corrupt Utah law enforcement officials, that they're all corrupt liars and they're all bad and evil. They're mishandling the case. They're mishandling evidence. They're covering stuff up. If Tyler James Robinson is the shooter, Tyler James Robinson is the shooter. If the end conclusion is the same, the end conclusion is the same. If that is the truth, and that is what happened, and that is the person that took the life of Charlie Kirk, and that is the person that is arrested, charged, tried, and going to be sentenced, then that is still the same foregone conclusion. You cannot literally say that you're going to solve the murder of your friend Charlie Kirk, and then rely on the dirty feds that are corrupt for their evidence, their case file, and cite what they have put out publicly. But she does the same thing that we just saw happen at the Charlie Kirk Memorial. We saw Vice President J.D. Vance say the same exact manipulation. They tried to silence Charlie Kirk and his voice with a bullet in his throat. There is no they. That is a psychological manipulation to lump in his lone 22-year-old killer, Tyler James Robinson, with the other political party. That's what I don't like about politics today in America. It's misleading. It is manipulative. It feels grimy and disgusting. And it is extremely dishonest. Extremely dishonest to make people think anything other than the truth is possible. And as of right now, in this very moment, Tyler James Robinson took the life of Charlie Kirk. And he took the life of Charlie Kirk from what his own words, as of this moment that we know of, is because he spread too much hate. And some hate, you cannot essentially compromise with it. You can't beat it out of somebody. That is what Tyler James Robinson said was his reasoning for taking the life of Charlie Kirk. And here's the problem with that. They're trying to
It is better to face a gunman than to live your life afraid to speak the truth.
He may be considered a martyr, and some people are going to, especially all of the Republican Party, is going to martyr him. But it is better to be persecuted for your faith than
to deny the kingship of Christ.
To say that Charlie Kirk died a martyr. Everybody dies. If I was to die right now, I, just like everybody else, we all die with our religious beliefs or none, with our values, our ethics, our morals, our principles, and our convictions. But the definition, the actual definition of a martyr is somebody who dies, who is intentionally killed, murdered, made to suffer, persecuted because of their religious beliefs and because they would not renounce them. Charlie Kirk unfortunately passed away 11 days ago because a 22-year-old young man named Tyler James Robinson decided to get a weapon and orchestrate, plan, carry out, and succeed his mission of taking his life. Now, it was alleged it was about 160 to 200 yards away. That's nothing. There are experts. You can find them on TikTok. You can find them on YouTube that have said the military start training at 350 yards all the way up to 1,000 yards, even though that's extremely difficult. If you have the right equipment, the right scope, it makes it a little bit easier. However, this person may have grown up hunting, and with target and practicing, there's always a little outline of a torso, a head, and of course you see right in the middle of where the heart and the lungs go is where the bullseye is. Okay, this person was not a professional by any means at 160 yards. This person was clearly aiming for the torso, which is typical for inexperienced people. What he didn't account for is the arcing, which tells you that it's not professional. And unfortunately, he was able to successfully carry out what he did. That's the part that angered me. Why is no security doing detail and actually scouting, reconning these rooftops at these types of events? Why aren't they posted at them? This should never be allowed to happen. But it's not everybody and everything else. It's not Charlie Kirk himself. It's the fact that Tyler James Robinson did what he did. It's not a Mossad agent. It's not Israel. It's not Bibi Netanyahu. It's not the deep state. It's not the feds. It's not the CIA. And I am not falling for the trap of this psychological manipulation that is coming from people that knew him, friends, family, or his own political party. But the fact is, Charlie Kirk passed away because of the actions of what Tyler James Robinson did. He was not aware of what he was doing. He was not aware of what happened. And very fortunately, thank God, he passed away with no pain, not knowing what happened, which is a lot more gracious than a lot of people get when they pass away. But as of right now, Charlie Kirk wasn't...
For Charlie, we will speak the truth
killed.
every single day.
Wasn't persecuted or made to suffer knowingly. And you can look this up yourself. Knowingly because of his religious beliefs, because he refused to renounce his religious beliefs. So therefore, the very truth is, and I know that they're going to make him a martyr, but the very truth is, by the very definition of what martyr means, Charlie Kirk did not die a martyr. He was a very deeply religious man. Yes, he was also very political. Yes, he loved people. Yes, but that doesn't make him dying a martyr true. He died because a 22-year-old young man named Tyler James Robinson thought, because of his own opinion and thoughts, that Charlie Kirk spread hate. And that's going based on what we know right now, based on his own words. That has nothing to do with his religious beliefs. And knowingly being persecuted or made to suffer because of the religious beliefs. Spreading hate politically was Tyler James Robinson's opinion and thoughts and feelings about Charlie Kirk, which therefore doesn't meet the definition of a martyr. People have even said that they want to make him a saint. Being a Christian, you do not believe in saints. That is one of the 10 commandments, that you shall have no other God or worship any false idols above God. And that includes any kind of saints. You don't worship any other deities in any kind of way, shape, or form, because that is breaking that commandment. The same way that God commands us to obey him, to not lie. Even by way of implying or insinuating, it's still a lie, and it's still dishonest. Even if you got that loophole of, well, I didn't really say that. Well, I didn't really do that. I didn't really commit defamation because I didn't really actually say those words string together. I didn't really commit defamation because I didn't really say a name. I played the psychological game of they and them. Us versus them. And honestly, I'm just so tired of the repetitiveness of that they and them and us versus them versus us. And it's us, the good, versus them, the evil. And no, that's not true. Because we know one thing about evil, it likes to cloak itself and disguise itself as good. That's why many people believe that Candace Owens is a psyop, that she's intentionally put there in the media to psychologically manipulate people. But the fact is even over on X, like, all the fact-checking and corroborating and all of the cross-verifying and all of the research that I have done in the last 11 days, asking Grok questions or asking any other independent AI chatbot questions, was for no other reason than to get a clarification in any way, shape, or form that question could be turned around and asked. And I've done that. And the fact is that Charlie Kirk did not like conspiracy theories. He liked truth and fact. He stood for truth and fact. And conspiracy theories play on your distrust of law enforcement, federal agents, the CIA. It plays on your already paranoia. But that doesn't get me to blindly follow and buy your shit or subscribe to you or get a membership to you. Because I don't fall for that. I don't fall for that. And the reason why is you can sit there and say whatever about the Jewish, whatever about Zionists, whatever about Bibi Netanyahu, whatever about the feds, whatever about law enforcement, whatever about Israel. Charlie Kirk loved Israel and he planned on visiting again. And he absolutely said time and time again that it was one of the greatest joys of his life, the greatest gifts of his life, being able to go where his Lord and Savior performed miracles, lived, walked on water, fed the 5,000, and died, was crucified. It's awfully convenient that Candace Owens doesn't like Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, or certain really wealthy Jewish Americans, and kind of misleads people to conclude that, oh, they might have had something to do with, the assassination. That's when I said, okay, this is not truth. This is lies. This is evil, and I'm stepping away from this because this feels dark to me. This feels grimy and gross. But I still love Candace Owens, and I pray for her. And yes, I do pray for her. I'm a nobody. I'm poor. I'm disabled. And I've survived cancer. But I am deeply faithful and obedient with my own relationship with God. And praying for her to hopefully come back a little bit, this slippery slope, this dark hole that she has gone down. Because I do like Candace Owens. I love her personality. I love her show. But just this past week and these past 6 videos, once my eyes opened and paid attention to these little details after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, it just didn't feel right. The whole thing felt just off to me. And I know I'm a nobody, but Candace Owens is not exempt or free from critique, even from a nobody. If she wants to finally win over her audience, she has to stop with these unfounded conspiracy theories, these insinuations, these heavy implications, and she needs to start showing some real proof, real evidence, because even theories have evidence, whether it's forensic or circumstantial, that backs up the person that has the theory and why they believe it. Conspiracy theories, however, do not. And that is leading by blind faith. I don't have to agree with a foreign prime minister, king, emperor, president in any way, shape, or form. And there's over 1 million different possibilities that can be thrown out there for conspiracy theories. But it's no coincidence to me that Candace Owens has had a problem with very wealthy Jewish donors and backers before, and that Zionism and psychological manipulation and psychiatry and perversion and all of these things always tie back to Jewish wealthy people or Bibi Netanyahu and Israel. And you don't have to agree with Bibi Netanyahu, his principles, his policies, his actions in any way, shape, or form. People can believe that genocide is bad, is bad, is bad. Some people can believe that what they're doing is legal under UN law, that it's legal, that they have the right to defend themselves. I'm not going to get into that argument, and nobody is going to bait me into getting into that argument. But it's just very convenient killing 2 birds with 1 stone, making people misleading, very dishonestly, people into believing that that's why Charlie Kirk died. The fact is, Charlie Kirk, he was like the internet's brother. Okay, Jay Leno for 20 years did this segment on his late night show. It was like the street walking segment where he went around and proved that adults didn't even have basic elementary level education, asking them to name the 50 states, asking them to name the capital of the state that they live in. Just simple questions. Charlie Kirk took that in a modern day age to a whole another level, but he did so in a political sense. He was not only the internet's brother. Everybody has seen his videos in one way, shape, or form, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on TikTok. He was the let's talk about it guy. But what a lot of people don't realize, as much as I've liked certain aspects of Charlie Kirk and his personality, he's not free from criticisms either, because that's just fundamentally the truth. And the truth was that Charlie Kirk went around under a tent for many, many years saying, prove me wrong. And there were people that have debated him and have even, he said, oh yeah, I concede that we need to have a further debate. Can I get your information? So we can talk deeper into that, or that's a topic that we can look more into. He was not always right about everything. Nobody is always right about everything. Just like there's nobody that is 100% honest all the time about everything, including Charlie Kirk or even Candace Owens. But when you come to the very core, fundamentally, in every capacity of what he was doing, he was making content for his show and for his YouTube channel. He was a YouTuber. Even the Charlie Kirk show was on YouTube. And YouTube is a social media, even though it is like mainstream media, more than mainstream media is today, because YouTube has a global and a much bigger reach than most mainstream medias do today. I mean, YouTube is probably the most commonly open one. How often do you watch CNN? You probably watch YouTube a lot more than you do CNN. So I'm not going to be manipulated into, mainstream media versus us. If you're on YouTube and you have a very large following of 5 million or more, yeah, you are mainstream media, sweetheart. You are. But what Charlie Kirk did is essentially, even though he was very kind and loving with a lot of people, there was a lot of times where he wasn't. We've seen his OG crash outs. We've seen him with a very harsh tone, and we've seen him even raise his voice at people. But the fact is, with what he did, he embarrassed a lot of really young people. There was a lot of people that got angry and walked away. There was people that threw things at him. This is the really hard truth for somebody that knows and love him to possibly accept. But from an outside perspective, he's done this for a long time on YouTube. He not only went to these college campuses where these young people attend school, but he embarrasses them. And he not only embarrasses them under the guise of prove me wrong in front of their peers, but he does so on camera. And then he puts it to a global mainstream audience where somebody can watch it repetitively, time and time again, where it's going to stay forever. If you don't believe that Charlie Kirk had domestic enemies right here in the United States of America, all you have to do is just go and look at how many people on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X celebrated him passing away. And that right there tells you that people disliked him, that he had a very severe domestic threat against his life and his safety that maybe even he didn't realize, because I didn't realize it until I saw how many people were disgustingly celebrating the fact that he died. And it's not even, it's a horrible thought. I don't have to like somebody or agree with anybody. I do not condone the action of somebody using a weapon and taking the life of another person. It's not just the fact that you take that sacred life, but that you are justifying this horrible, heinous, depraved, evil act of violence and taking a life. And you're justifying that because you didn't like the person. You know, it's the same thing with George Floyd. A lot of people, well, why? I mean, look at how many Republicans, why? He was a drug addict. He had a former record. That doesn't make it okay. Doesn't make it okay for anybody to take a life. And then that's a whole different conversation and debate for people. What defines taking somebody's life and unjustified taking of somebody's life? Not even going to get into what God, the law, says about that. But the fact is, when it comes to self-defense, even when it comes to law enforcement, if that person is actively posing an immediate and imminent threat to you, your partner, civilians, themselves, then that's different. But still, people don't deserve to have their life taken, no matter who they are or what they've done. Because it's not about who they are or what they've done, if they're beloved or if they are hated. It's about the fact that it is not okay for any human being to feel entitled enough to do that, to take that life. And that's what deeply upsets and angers me, is that people, so many people in the Western world, in the English-speaking world, that culturally, religiously, politically, or lack thereof, believe that they're allowed to do that. And they not only do that, they fundamentally believe that they could do it and get away with it, or that they're allowed to do it, and it doesn't matter if they spend the rest of their life in prison or if they're going to get the death penalty. Just the fact that people can think, motion through life, and operate in that kind of way, it's deeply unsettling, because if it can happen to Charlie Kirk domestically, it can happen to anybody. And there are millions of other people that are political activists, that are spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ all throughout college campuses, that record it for content and have channels. Charlie Kirk's not, there's hundreds, if not a million of them collectively throughout the world that do the same exact thing on YouTube. But I also think that, yeah, Candace Owens might not want to do it the nice way, but Erica Kirk, with what she said, I think we kind of have to listen to what his wife, who knew him best, what she said. And she forgave.
Instead of saying we're going to do evil and then murder the being because we're going to pander to the evil. No, what makes the West great is that we do good after evil, not evil after evil. Instead of
That young man on the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love. Love for our enemies and love for those who persecute us. The world needs Turning Point USA. It needs a group that will point young people away from the path of misery and sin. It needs something that will lead people away from hell in this world and in the next. It needs young people pointed in the direction of truth and beauty. And so I promise you today, every part of our work will become greater. I am tremendously honored to be the new CEO of Turning Point USA.
For Charlie, we will speak the truth every single day.
We are going to solve the murder of my friend, Charlie Kirk. And if you guys would like to support us, we are independent.
Charlie Kirk has had a relationship and friendship with Kash Patel, the now FBI director, since before he was the director of the FBI. I know a lot of people don't have faith in law enforcement or the feds. However, I think to play on people's fear and paranoia of that exact fact is disheartening, especially because the feds and the Utah law enforcement officers have brought to justice the person that assassinated Charlie Kirk in under 48 hours. And 48 hours are very critical. The first 48. Erica Kirk herself has come out and thanked law enforcement officials, has thanked them.
Paid by a foreign government, allegedly, into their pockets so they can make millions and eventually fuck off the United States. Candace Owens and Ilhan Omar, same exact creature. Same exact creature. And Rashida Tlaib, Tucker Carlson, same exact creature. They are getting paid to confuse you. That is their goal. They're trying to confuse you so they can fuck off with all the money eventually and leave you to rot in a crumbling country. Because they're not team players. They're not here to help you figure out what's going on. They're here to fuck with you. They're here to make you feel bad. They're here to confuse the shit out of you and prey on your emotions in a moment where you feel bad. That's what they are. That's a reason. There's so many things that are coming out that's been made it abundantly clear that Charlie and Candace were not friends at the end of his life. And it's honestly, you know what, bro? It is, bro. I'm talking to you guys like my friend. It's disgusting that this is even that I even have to make fucking videos on this. Honestly, let the guy fucking rest in peace. Let him rest in peace. Let his wife, let him put him to rest and his children. Let them move past this instead of sitting down and looking for fucking conspiracies. I saw that. Erica Kirk is apparently going to be coming on his show next week to address these allegations, these fucking ridiculous allegations. Influencer who was present at the top secret Hampton summit comes out and said she did not witness any fighting between Seth Dillon, Bill Ackman, and Charlie Kirk. They all seemed like friends. She said they were pro-Israel figures and Israel critics at the meeting. Let's take a look here.
So the meeting that Candace Owens is bringing up a lot in her podcast at the Hamptons, I'd like to shed some light on that. I was a guest at the Hamptons. I was in the sessions. I do not know everything that took place. Obviously, there could have been conversations outside of the sessions that I was in. I met Bill Ackman. He did not come across as aggressive. I never witnessed him yelling at Charlie. It never felt like an intervention. It just felt like, a bunch of influencers getting together to debate various topics. There were a lot of pro-Israel influencers there. I did notice that, but there were also critics of Israel there. So it opened the room up for really good debate. But we debated many topics outside of Israel as well. I am not claiming to know everything. I'm just speaking from my point of view as an attendee at the event. One thing I can say that was false is when Candace says that Charlie mentioned if he tweeted that Bibi Netanyahu should resign, that it would cost him donors. He did say that in the session, but she claims that after that, Seth Dillon aggressively attacked Charlie. That did not happen. Did not happen. So my issue is not with her asking questions, is not with her investigating. My issue is with her making false claims about people and ruining reputations without solid evidence.
It was no secret that Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens did not have the friendship that they once had. And the friendship they once had was based off of them working together. Nobody can take away from the fact that that was her friend. She has every right to look into independently what happened around the whole circumstance of him being assassinated. What I don't like is the psychological manipulation, the misleading people and not showing proof and trying to tie it all to her already very conspicuous conspiracy theories. Text messages with Charlie Kirk have come forward where he has said explicitly that Candace Owens has gone down the conspiracy rabbit hole and he doesn't know what's going on with her. He says he doesn't do silly virtue signaling stuff, not publicly. He actually says, what exactly is she talking about, meaning Candace Owens? Where does she get all this stuff from? I'm not being sarcastic. I'm so confused. Now, from Charlie himself, he's saying essentially that he doesn't understand why Candace is going down this route, why she's going down this path, why she's going down the conspiracy rabbit hole and not coming out. But this person says that I watched the podcast. Candace needs to say two things and this will stop in its tracks. They are fundamental conservative principles. And she didn't say either. Quote, Israel is not committing genocide, unquote. And you see the second. Having people murdered and beheaded Americans in Gaza makes the fight America first. Now, I'm not going to get into this because Candace Owens has made her position very clear that genocide is genocide. It is no secret that Hamas and other terrorist groups not only pose a threat to Israel, but pose a threat to Americans. They have not only taken the lives of Americans, but they have chanted in the street, death to America, death to all Americans. That could be why President Donald Trump still has an interest in keeping relationships with Israel and financially supporting them, because not only of the Judeo-Christian relationship, but if these terrorist groups are posing a threat to Israel, they are indirectly posing a threat to America as well. Now, I'm not stating my opinion on this, but of course, if you look underneath the UN, the United Nations Charter, and look at their articles, there are some people that believe that Israel has the right to defend itself. Some people are also using that to say that Palestinians have the right to defend themselves. Also, Article 2.7 of the UN Charter means that there is nothing that authorizes the UN to intervene in matters, especially matters that are within domestic jurisdictions of a state. Of course, most people would agree with Candace Owens that genocide is always wrong. But that's where the definition of genocide and what you think genocide is to you completely differs for people. And of course, we know that Israel is the promised land and God made a covenant with all of Abraham's descendants. But there's also the Mosaic covenant after Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments. The Mosaic covenant is a conditional promise to the ancient Israelites. Unlike the Abrahamic covenant, the Mosaic covenant is conditional. Of course, there are different interpretations and divisions about the Abrahamic covenant. Isaac and Ishmael, the fathers of the Jewish people and the Arabic people. So some people today do believe that Israel has the right to self-preservation and defense. And some people believe that what they are doing fits underneath the definition of genocide and that they do not have the right. This is the one thing that I do not like about religion or politics, especially the two being intermingled, because nobody's right or wrong. It all depends on who you are, what you believe, how you look at it, where you're from. To each his own, and that applies even to Candace Owens. However, right or wrong, religiously, morally, humanely, there are a lot of people over on Twitter that are also noticing that Candace Owens is down this conspiracy rabbit hole and she ties everything to a conspiracy. Yes, there are good law enforcement officers. There are a lot of really good people that work in law enforcement. Sure, just like any job, there's going to be people that are bad or corrupt, but Candace Owens has relied on security, bodyguards, and even law enforcement before because of threats to herself. But they're allegedly all corrupt and bad. They're all lying, remember? And I haven't been able to find it because it's years old, but allegedly Candace Owens was helping run or promote a GoFundMe to help the cop that had taken the life of George Floyd get a private attorney. I vaguely remember it from that time, but I could not confirm that because I haven't been able to find it. It's no longer there. So for cops to all be bad and for feds to all be bad and the CIA to all be bad, it's kind of funny that she would support a, quote, bad cop, unquote, saying essentially what Charlie Kirk did, that the cop had every right to defend himself because that was a training technique that he was taught to use in the event that somebody resists arrest. Also, that is left up to your own interpretation and your own definition of what all of that means. This just leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. It just leaves me with a really queasy feeling in my stomach. Not only has Charlie's own pastor debunked a lot of the things in Candace Owens' last 6 videos, but so did Bill Ackman. But she's biased against Bill Ackman. To believe Candace and that Bill Ackman is extremely wealthy and all of his wealth came from very questionable means doesn't change the fact that Candace Owens and her husband are extremely wealthy. So they're all in the same boat. It's just how they're all using us to make their money. I don't like further division. Not religiously, not politically at all. As much as I love Candace Owens and watching her videos and I love conspiracy theories, this is not the same thing as aliens or political and religious corruption as a whole or the government of this state or the government of this nation. And I also don't like when somebody is pointing fingers for a way to get out of having to commit defamation at they and them, and it's all them versus us type of sentiment, but they're not actually saying what they really want to say. All under the guise that she's going to solve her friend's murder. We're all going to be on the right side of history as long as you're with her. It's all going to be good versus evil. And as long as you're in agreement with her and on the side of her, then you're on the good side. So ask yourself this question with all of her tweets since the moment that Charlie Kirk passed away. Who ordered the hit on Charlie? Saying things like, right about now, whoever made the decision to assassinate Charlie Kirk is going to regret it. They are going to recognize that they made a terrible mistake. They are going to try and grassy knoll it, meaning JFK. Redirection, deflection, misdirection, saying things like he was falling out of love with Israel, which was not true. His view of Israel and Bibi Netanyahu and his issues with his donors that are Jewish or Jewish American are two different things. Saying that it's Zionist and Zionist donors. Making accusations like, if you betray Charlie, I will find out. Sorry, guys, you murdered my friend. This is very open-ended, very direct, coupling and grouping of her words. She's even gone on to say things about Bibi Netanyahu and the letter after insinuating in 2 videos that he might have had something to do with it, that his behavior of eulogizing Charlie was very suspicious, to indirectly accuse the feds of lying, of covering something up, even though it was the Utah law enforcement that brought the charges against Tyler James Robinson. And they deserved every help that they got, even if it was the dirty, corrupt federal agents and Charlie's own friend, the director, Kash Patel. She's now saying that all Zionists are sinister and lie, but then in the same breath says the indictment against Charlie Kirk's murderer, Tyler Robinson, has just dropped. This right here nullifies. This null and voids all of her other tweets of they killed Charlie. Who ordered the hit? Who was behind it? You guys killed my friend. These demons that did this. Saying things like, don't gaslight and manipulate me with Charlie would have done it the nice way. This is psychological manipulation. Maybe you missed the part where they shot him in the throat anyway. This is not proof in any way, shape, or form that what she's saying about Charlie Kirk's assassination ties to any of her conspiracy theories, because it doesn't. She's just playing on your paranoia and your fear and your distrust of law enforcement and federal agents to make you believe and conclude exactly what she believes, when really truth is just truth. Fact is just fact. Truth and facts don't need manipulation. It doesn't need convincing. Everyone trying to manipulate me with Charlie would have done it the nice way. He would have. And his wife did exactly that last night. She stood very tall on a live stream and said that young man who did this to her, her family, and her husband, that she forgives him, that we are compelled as Christians or Catholics to do exactly that, to follow in practice, not in theory, the gospel and the teachings of Jesus Christ. Charlie Kirk said, what makes the West great is that we do good after evil, not evil after evil. And Tyler James Robinson is going to face the law for what he did. And of course, Candace Owens says this: the strength it takes to stand on stage and say that you forgave a person, not they, them, Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, none of that, who brought so much hurt to you. Absolutely incredible, Erica. What a stunning example of Christian faith. So here's the part where I've prayed for Candace Owens, and I pray for her own faith, and I pray for her own deliverance from that anger, hatred, and hurt that she has. One person even joked that she needs to forgive Bibi Netanyahu, implying that she must practice the foundations and teachings of her own religion and faith. What we need is not more division, not more hate, a call to action to end all division and hate, despite politics or religious beliefs. But really, if you're not self-aware, you can very easily fall into the category of those who are manipulated by people who are driving further hatred and distrust in the government and law enforcement, fall into their trap to further divide, all because of their own opinions on their own politics and religious belief. I refuse to be a person that is grouped or coupled with they, them, over here or over there. And this is exactly why I hate religious divides and political divides. And this is exactly why I hate politics on both sides of the aisle. When most people, close to 50% in the United States, don't align with being a conservative or a Republican at all. And there are other independent parties that most people would align with. They just don't know they exist, like libertarians, the Green Party, the Constitution Party, Peace and Freedom Party, there's union parties, there's liberty parties, there's natural law parties and different factions of union type parties. There are a lot of other political parties besides Republican and Democrat. And we unfortunately are stuck in a two-party system in the United States of America. Only about 25% of America's population are either Republican or Democratic, and that makes up about half. But recent polls have shown that it's even much less than that, that it's around 17%. And that's just accounting for which way people voted in the last election. Because essentially you can vote either which way you want to. It doesn't mean that you're affiliated with that particular party, like most people are not. Even at under 40% of people that consider themselves Republican or Democrat, that leaves the majority of Americans who don't align with any kind of political party. Yet we are manipulated to believe otherwise. Conclude your own thoughts and feelings based on your own beliefs, but take a listen to the president.
Charlie's killing has been arrested and charged with capital murder. God willing, he will receive the full and ultimate punishment for his horrific crime. It's a terrible thing.
You mean Candace Owens is wrong? And it's not they, them, Israel, the dirty feds lying? You mean his killer is Tyler James Robinson? And if the conclusion is the same, and he is the shooter and the assassin, then the conclusion is the same. Then the independent probe or independent investigation makes no difference. It's also not solving the murder of her friend Charlie Kirk, because the FBI and local law enforcement have already successfully done that. Do not be manipulated or fooled by anybody, even Candace Owens, even if you like her.
Because you can't let that happen. You can't let that happen. Can't let it happen to a country. The Department of Justice is also investigating networks of radical left maniacs who fund, organize, fuel, and perpetrate political violence, and we think we know who many of them are. But law enforcement can only be the beginning of our response to Charlie's murder. Over the last 11 days, we have heard stories of commentators, influencers, and others in our society who greeted his assassination with sick approval.
And this applies to both sides because there are people that are using the assassination of Charlie Kirk for their own monetization. As I said before, good or bad doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you have good intentions. The road to hell is paved in good intentions. Show me just one definitive piece of proof or evidence that anybody other than Tyler James Robinson did this to Charlie Kirk. Just one little piece, one thing to back up her claims or her conspiracy, and I will concede that it is possible. Not a single person has been able to provide that proof at all.
Excuses or even jubilation. You've heard that. So have I. Couldn't believe it.
How do you want to be remembered?
I mean, if I die?
Everything just goes away. How would you, if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith in my life.
Charlie Kirk, thank you so much.
Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please like and share. Don't forget to smash the subscribe button. God bless you all, and God bless America.